And I had encouraged them upon them beginning to walk the walk of the faithful. I encouraged them to read the New Testament, of course, which they had been doing at the time, because that was all part and parcel with the search, was that we spent many, many nights at restaurants talking about the Bible, talking about God, and and it ultimately led them to, in fact, in both cases, they had what I would call, and I think I've referred to in my opening video as a born-again experience, that they became profoundly aware, uniquely aware, because it wasn't something that I did, because I wasn't even around when it happened for either one of them. But for both of them, there was that moment of revelation, that moment of realization that God loved them, and they felt this presence and so on. It almost sounds like a Mormon conversion, doesn't it? Yeah. So in the course of them making of that moment, and the context that they had for it was because, well, I suspect that they had this kind of questioning that was going on that led them to me, or led them to engage in these conversations with me, that led them to finally, being very open to God, sort of, touching them in a way that they came to believe. Now, see, I wasn't going to go into all that detail, but I did. So let's see if I can get back on track here. So anyway, I encourage them to read the Bibles, and I encourage them to start in the book of Romans. See, I really was a good Christian. And as we were working our way through Romans, we started to, we pretty much had to begin entertaining some of the concepts that are in Romans with respect to the law, with respect to, okay, we've got this something new happening on the scene in the New Testament. What was going on in the Old Testament? Okay, so we have these laws that were in place for the nation of Israel to follow, and working our way through Romans, I kept to the very classical interpretation that among them nobody can observe all of those laws, and God knew it, but nonetheless this was his standard of holiness that had to be kept, and if people failed to live up to that standard, then this was going to work against them in the end. And as we were sort of working through the need for JC to come, shed blood, and so on and so forth, and the role of faith that plays in all of that, that what counts with God is faith without respect to performance, without respect to you having to do a bunch of things to obtain God's favor. And as we're going through all of this, I remember getting the call one evening, and Ed, I'm quite sure it was a phone call. There were so many phone calls and so many face-to-faces at the time. They lived, they lived about, I don't know how, 300, 200 miles away, 3 hours away from where I lived, but we managed to see each other because of work quite frequently. And anyway, Ed posed this question to me. It's like, well, I'm here reading it, and it sounds to me, when I'm reading Romans, it sounds to me like I have to, that I'm supposed to obey the law. And I'm like, well, yeah, the Ten Commandments, you obey the Ten Commandments. That's the moral law. But the rest of the law, has been done away with. Sacrifices have been done away with. The ceremonial law, the rituals, all of those things have been done away with. But you have to keep the You have to keep the moral law. And so anyway, he's saying, well, I don't really see that. I see that we're supposed to obey the law. And so I, of course, did the whole spiel, in Christ is the end of the law and all its commandments. They've all been abolished in Christ Jesus. They've been nailed to the cross. The letter of the law kills, the Spirit gives life. I gave them all. I, went down through it, and I said, look, go back and read it some more, and if you're still convinced that this is the case, then come the next time we get together, we'll sit down and we'll discuss it. Well, he didn't change his mind, to his credit. And some people would, I know that there are some Christians who would look at that and they'd say, yes, he had an unsubmissive spirit, or he was unteachable. Yeah, that's what it is, unteachable. That's me. And so anyway, we got together and he didn't change his mind. And about this time, this was about the same time that I had become driven by this need to plant a garden